sit on it. It's going to have to get real messy.
Oh, yeah, baby.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Screenstars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2024 action film Take Cover. The film is directed by Nick McKinless and it stars Scott Adkins, Jack Parr and Alice Eve. Now the film focuses on two hitmen really. We have Scott Adkins' character Sam and his partner Ken, played by Jack Parr. They've been doing it for a long time. Scott Adkins is a talented sniper, a really good shooter, and his friend Ken is like his spotter. So Scott Adkins thinks that he's been kind of taking down bad guys for years. He's ex-military, well-trained, and he's on this one particular hit that doesn't go particularly well. It messes with his head a bit and he decides it's time to retire. But he agrees to do one last job for their boss, played by Alice Eve, Tamara. However, when they get to the hotel to prepare for their job, it turns out that they've been lured into a trap by their boss, who was intent on taking them out in order to make sure they remain retired forever. As you can imagine, Scott Adkins is not going to take that lying down. Right, what are my thoughts on Take Cover? I saw the trailer for this one a while ago. I thought it looked really, really interesting. As you guys know, I'm a big fan of Scott Adkins and his movies. I've got a playlist designated to Scott Adkins films on my channel. I did a top 10 of my favourite Scott Adkins films a couple of months ago on the channel. So I generally think that he is a very underrated, not just an underrated action star, but he's an underrated actor as well. He's a pretty good actor. He's great at accents, all that kind of stuff. And with the right vehicle, he can be a top-notch action star, and he's proven that in the past with some of his movies. Where does this one stand then? Would this get in anybody's top 10 favourite Scott Adkins films lists? Probably not, but that's not to say that it doesn't have some merit, because I actually do think it does have some merit. I think it's got a pretty decent story. It's a story you've seen before many, many times. A hitman getting a bit over the hill, is questioning his own morals, and he wants out. It never really goes well, does it? That sort of thing. Now, we've seen this a lot fairly recently. There's that Dave Bautista film that's just come out, where he's a hitman wanting out sort of thing for different reasons. And Scott Adkins himself has played, a hitman in some of his movies. And Hitman's Holiday last year, the sequel to his Hitman films. Those are very much comedy related and comic book related in regards to their action. This film is a little bit more grounded in its approach to telling a story like this. You've got Scott Adkins' character, who's actually quite a laid character. He's questioning his own existence. He's not a religious guy, but he's really is at a crossroads in his life and he's questioning everything he's doing. And he's got his friend Ken, who is the complete opposite of him, really. They've known each other since high school, I think. And this Ken's much more outgoing and, comfortable with what they do and all this kind of stuff. And not happy that his friend's retiring. So they're very, if you like, they make good for debates on screen, which I think it's actually quite interesting to listening to them debate. You've got Scott Adkins with this moral dilemma on one side. You've got Ken, who's got absolutely no problem on the other, and they're having this debate and stuff. But it while at times that does kind of threaten to drag the film down a little bit, to kind of take it, because it does take itself, you could argue, a little bit too seriously, this film. It still makes for a more compelling action film, if you like, than many that you will see from this kind of budget range. This actually gives you something to think about to a large degree in regards to, the content of it and this character that Scott Adkins plays. But when it gets down to brass tacks, when it gets down to the action, it doesn't hold back either. They're in this dilemma where they're stuck in this hotel room and there's a sniper at the building over there. got them pinned down. If they move, they're dead, basically, because this sniper's going to take them out. So you've got Scott Adkins, you've got his mate, and you've got these two masseur specialists that were sent to the room to keep them happy. So they're in this real difficult position. What do they do? How do they survive? And any move they make just means that it's going to be, elevated to the next level in regards to people, getting into the room and trying to take them out. So when the actions kicks off, it's fun, it's interesting, it's well choreographed as you would expect. The action and the fighting are always superbly choreographed in Scott Adkins movies. Really, really top-notch stuff. And it's no different here. This is not what I would call a typical martial arts film, but there is definitely martial arts in it, certainly from Scott Adkins and some of the other characters. There's some pretty cool fights. But it's not really about that. It's not really about, martial arts action and stuff. It's more of a survival film. How are they going to survive in this hotel room? How are they going to get out in one piece? How is Scott Adkins going to keep everybody alive in this really difficult position that they're in? Because you've got these two innocent people in the room as well, who are just sent to the room to kind of give them a massage and all that kind of stuff. And, they don't want to die. So he's got to keep them safe and from harm and all this kind of stuff. So it takes a little bit to get going. I mean, it's got an interesting start. And then when it slows down then after like the first act, and it slows down quite drastically to some degree, because when they are trapped in this room with this sniper, it becomes more about the dialogue and the dilemma that they're in, until they have to kind of do something about the dilemma that they're in. And that's when the action really, really kicks in. So I do think this had potential to kind of elevate itself a little bit more. I think the section where it kind of slows down a bit, might put some people off. But if you're kind of patient and you get through that, I enjoyed some of the dialogue, and I enjoyed some of the dilemmas that he had to deal with. The fact that he's got this moral dilemma, and he's had a sense of he's coming to terms with what he is and what he's done, and how he can kind of change all that. But it never really fully takes up the fun out of the film. It does take itself a tad too seriously, I think, this film. It could have done with a little bit of lightness adding to it. And some of that was supposed to come from the Jack Parr character, Ken. He's the other side of the coin of the Scott Adkins character, and he does bring some lightness to the film. But you'll know what I mean when you watch the film. It doesn't necessarily happen for a great length of time. So I do think this is a decent Scott Adkins film. I quite enjoyed it. And for those of you who enjoy his films, this is definitely an above average one from him for sure. And I have seen Scott Adkins films in the past that are 5 out of 10s, 4 out of 10s. They're just quite poor. He's now at the level where he can churn out, I think, some pretty decent, good quality action films, and this is definitely one worth checking out. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this film, and I will of course be back with plenty more reviews and content on the channel very, very soon.